Salutations, respected viewers. This is George from Ireland. Here I am outside Zimbabwe House in London. So this is Zimbabwean embassy in the United Kingdom, formerly a High Commission. Now, this was built here in the early 60s, and initially it was called Rhodesia House. Rhodesia, as it was then, was moving towards independence, split into northern and southern Rhodesia, of course, Zambia, as it now is, and indeed Zimbabwe. But then Ian Douglas Smith, he issued his unilateral declaration of independence on the 11th of November 1965. It was an allusion to Remembrance Day, the First World War, the Second World War. The First World War ended on the 11th of November 1918, saying, oh, we Rhodesians, they'd now be Zimbabweans, have fought for the United Kingdom, and yet we're being cast adrift. Well, not really, you cut yourselves adrift. Now, what he was saying is largely applied to the whites, not black Zimbabweans. Of course, black Zimbabweans had fought for the British Empire as well, but Mr. Smith did not want to give them much of a say in government. Very, very few black Zimbabweans had the right to vote at the time. So, because the white minority declared independence, the United Kingdom cut Zimbabwe off. Rhodesia, as it then was, refused to do commerce, and this place was shut. It was mothballed for years. No countries would recognize that breakaway republic. There were still diplomatic missions in Harare, or Salisbury as it then was, because these people were accredited to Her Majesty the Queen and not to the Rhodesian regime. Anyway, 1979, we know the Lancaster House Agreement. Lancaster House is not a mile from here. And then diplomatic relations were restored. The country was Zimbabwe and Rhodesia briefly, then became Zimbabwe in April 1980, and the rest is history. So you can see the coat of arms up above there, with those two deer-like animals. Unity, freedom, work, the motto of the country. So, so often I see protesters outside here. Since 2002, I've seen protesters outside here, and until 2002, people from Zimbabwe could come to the United Kingdom without a visa. As a tourist, stay for 90 days, blah, blah, blah. But some of them availed themselves of this opportunity and claimed asylum whilst they were here. So it's quite heavily concentrated in London, the Zimbabwean community in the United Kingdom. But there are other communities. I know a Zimbabwean chap from Cardiff, for instance. So it's usually here where they congregate. So the protesters foregathered to demonstrate against President Mugabe. Well, they did when he was still in office. And this new chap, Emerson Mnangagwa, and I've often spoken to them. And I remember the first time I came along in 2002, and the man leading us in the protest saying, everyone hold hands and say, I'm much more important than Robert Mugabe, and so on. And then he very delicately said, excuse me, but it seems that quite a lot of you here are whites, which was true, because only about 0.5% of the Zimbabwean populace is white, but the protesters would be more like 10%. But they're more likely to be British citizens, have close ancestral links, come here and blah, blah, blah. So, of course, this was used by President Mugabe's government to say, it's completely unrepresentative. These people are just the black mask of a white supremacist movement. They're trying to reconquer us. Zimbabwe will never be a colony again, and stuff like that. So, you can see here they're advertising for tourism in Zimbabwe, and Air Zimbabwe doesn't fly very much. I was asking some of the gentlemen protesting out here about it, say, well, it doesn't fly very much, so they're mainly advertising other airlines. And if you look here, you can see the ambassador's car. So Zimbabwe left the Commonwealth of Nations a few years ago, but I interviewed Baroness Scotland, the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, a few months back, and she said they have requested readmission to the Commonwealth under new president, but I don't think that's actually been given effect to. This is the consular department, as in if you need to sort out visas or renew a passport, something of that nature, that's where you go. And so that's why it's still an embassy rather than a high commission. Because remember, Commonwealth countries are not really foreign to each other, that's the idea. So that's why they have high commissions to each other rather than embassies. And the person representing their country in the other Commonwealth nation will be called a high commissioner. He or she is not an ambassador, though they are still dressed as Your Excellency. Oh yeah, Victoria Falls. Okay, I got a good gag for you. What's the best name for a Zimbabwean geographer? Victoria Falls. How about that one? Okay. Many, many more. The Smoke That Thunders. Forgive me, I can't remember its name in those Bantu languages. but I just translated it into the English tongue. It may be hard to believe that I am not fluently conversant in Shona or indeed in Mbele. Now, people sometimes wonder, because of my intense curiosity for Zimbabwean affairs, am I of Zimbabwean stock? No, I am not, nor has any member of my family ever set foot in that republic, to the best of my knowledge and belief. So I'm just, for quite a few years, I've been extraordinarily inquisitive about Zimbabwe since about 2000. I remember first of all reading these Osprey military history books about the Chimurenga, or the Bush War, as some called it, the 1970s conflict in Zimbabwe, in which Zandla and Zipla eventually took victory. So that's that. Some stirring scenes of the landscape of Zimbabwe, and some of the airlines that can fly you there. Right, so I've never been in, really. Well, I've been into the consul, that's why I say really, the consul office to ask a question, but nothing came of it. So, not in the best of shape, unfortunately, the High Commission, but better days are ahead.